Hello, my name is Yasmin Jaloub. I am a senior in undergrad studying health science and kinesiology. I just kind of wanted to get on here and share a presentation I just presented today with my partner, um, as you can see her name right here, um, to just kind of spread awareness about the mutation of the MTHFR gene. This is not required for me for school. I already presented it, but I just thought that if anybody sees this, that it would be some good information. So I'm just kind of present it from what we were required to do, a novel approach. But this is just a good overall education on what exactly MTHFR does. It affects a lot more than just mental health and mental illnesses, but specifically, I want to talk about the mutation role of MTHFR affecting mental illness and modern mainstream testing, introducing it into genetic testing in a clinical setting. So, just kind of an overview of what I'm going to talk about. So, genetic testing for MTHFR mutations, I think, should be implemented into consistent mainstream medicine and clinical evaluation settings. When a patient comes to someone with symptoms of depression, anxiety, hey, I'm feeling this, because root causes is like a really key thing that I want to just promote, because we don't want to just hear, okay, I'm feeling this, I'm feeling that. And they're like, okay, here's a prescription for that, or here's a drug for that. And it just binds to this receptor and either turns it off, turns it on, whatever it is. I want to promote and get people thinking, okay, why are you feeling that way? Is it genetic? Is it something that is biological? Is it something that we can target and make it more individualized for that person? So getting a little bit into the genetics of it. So it's MTHFR is methylenetetrehydrofolate reductase, and it's a gene that is responsible for basically methylation. And so this is really important because it creates that gene, the methylating gene creates an enzyme called MTHFR enzyme that then methylates folate, which is your body's naturally producing, or it gets from food and everything, so folate. But then your body, the MTHFR enzyme, methylates that folate and converts it into the active form, which is 5-MTHF. That is a very critical step. And so when we have a mutation in that, it's going to just, you're going to see throughout this presentation, it's going to just be a cascade effect, and it affects so many other things. So the gene encodes, like I said, for that MTHFR enzyme to perform methylation. So this happens an issue with transcription or replication. So it's a base substitution, so a missense mutation. And there is basically a lack of methylation. And like I said, you can't convert folate to its active form. That active form without the mutation typically targets the homocysteine enzyme level, the homocysteine, and converts that homocysteine, targets it, methylates it, converts it into glutathione. Glutathione is extremely important for the body and reducing different things. I'll get into that later on. So we see that without that, with the mutation, we cannot do that properly and efficiently. So something that is going to blow your mind is that this mutation is within 50 to 85% of the population. All of this, I'll show my sources at the end, but all of this is backed by multiple studies, multiple PubMed, different things, National Library of Medicine. So this could possibly, due to the things that I have researched, could be a contributing factor to the rising rates of mental health issues and depression and anxiety that we've seen, especially in young adults. It's just skyrocketed within the last decade. So because it's 50, 85%, what are we going to get if it's an inheritable gene, which it is? It's an inheritable gene mutation. So we also have biochemical changes that occur which disrupt those neurotransmitter balances. We also have higher levels of homocysteine, lower levels of B vitamins, especially vitamin B12, which is very detrimental, especially for women. I won't get into that a lot, but just know that it does. Glutathione levels are low due to the lack of converting homocysteine to the glutathione. And so decreasing the homeostasis. So we have more of a lack of homeostasis of those enzyme activity levels, which then I'll talk about how that kind of infiltrates into why it causes anxiety and depression. And there's other things such as ADHD I'll touch on a little bit, but these are the main two. And so to confirm if an MTHFR mutation, because it's so common, if this is causing someone to have these symptoms with their mental health issues, we would want to run a genetic test, a cheek swab, blood test, send it to a lab, get those results back. After that, that test would look like where you would be positive. If it is, you'd be positive for that MTHFR mutation. It also would show which form you have. I'll talk about the two most common forms, and also if you're homozygous or heterozygous with that genotype. And that depends on the severity and the expressivity of your mutation. So um, after the testing, then that provider and the healthcare provider can create a protocol with different things that will target specifically your MTHFR mutation. And so this can really help with people struggling with that. And so MTHFR polymorphism, specifically those two common forms, which is C677T and A1298C, that disrupts those neurotransmitter hormone balances. And so we really want to be introducing genetic screening into those clinical settings. So the goal is to create a more individualized approach and going to that root cause. So, if somebody comes in and you're like, okay, you have depression, anxiety, whatever, go to psychiatrist, and then they just put you on some SSRIs, you're not, it's an overall of the population. It's like, okay, overall, if anyone comes in with this issue, that's just what we're going to do. And those can have side effects. Instead of saying, okay, this one person is coming to me with this one genetic history, this one coming from this one family, their own set of chromosomes and DNA, how can I individualize this approach for them? So that is really like the main idea that I want to communicate. So getting into some background. So like I said, it's replication or transcription error that involves base substitution that causes that mutation. So the two most common forms is that A1298C, which is an A base. So adenosine, I forget the word for it, but an A to a C position. So those are two bases that switch at that 1298 position. And then the most severe form is the C677T, C to a T position. So we're swapping out that C for a T base. That is a small thing, it's like just the switching of those bases, but it causes a lot of issues. Like I said, this is the 50 to 85% of that population. So when we have a smaller gene pool, specifically when we're talking about the MTHFR mutation, you've got two people that come together that are within 50 to 85% of the population. They come together, they have kids. The rising rate of mental health can continue rising if that happens. We don't advocate raise awareness about this issue in mutation that is so common because we have such a small gene pool with that. So we're going to continue to have people with a form of the MTHFR mutation. So this picture is just kind of showing on the DNA that is where that happens on that gene. We've got that base swapping. A little bit more background. So a little silly picture that I drew for it, but these are kind of your main players in that picture. So we've got the MTHFR gene, which then makes that MTHFR enzyme, which is crucial for then methylating, because remember, the MTHFR gene is a methylation gene. Methylation is huge. If we don't have methylation, a lot of issues happen. So the MTHFR gene then methylates that folate that you get from your body, but also from food and different things. That methylates it into the active form, the 5-MTHF, and then that creates we go to homocysteine, and that 5-MTHF then helps with that conversion of the homocysteine to glutathione. Also, the 5-MTHF creates SAME or SAMe, which is extremely important. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. So those when we have that mutation, we have a low active form of folate. We're having issues with really getting to those final product functional forms to help with amino acid and further processing for neurotransmitter balancing and balancing your levels of neurotransmitters that affect your anxiety or depression. So when we don't have that and we can't balance it, we're going to have some issues. Getting into the actual data, this is the science behind it. So, like I said, the 5 MTHF, which is the active form of folate, creates that same methylates neurotransmitters. So that's like a huge issue that we're not able to methylate it. I won't get into that enzyme a lot, but just keep that in mind. It's one of the key players. Low levels of the active form of folate, then, like I said, prevents that conversion of that homocysteine to the glutathione. So if we're not able to convert homocysteine and glutathione, but our body is still making it, what's going to happen? We're going to have a higher level of homocysteine, and that which is called hyperhomocysteinemia, which I'll talk about in the next slide. So just keep that in mind. So now we've got high levels of homocysteine. And because we can't convert that amount of homocysteine to glutathione, we don't have as much glutathione. So now we have low levels of glutathione, which increase anxiety and depression and mental issues, because glutathione is very important for targeting and reducing oxidative stress. So when we don't have a lot of glutathione and we can't reduce our oxidative stress, our body can't regulate that oxidative stress. And that oxidative stress is one of the factors that produces the symptoms of the anxiety and depression. Another thing that glutathione does is it is used by the liver to detox your body from environmental chemicals and toxins to reduce inflammation. So that's that epigenetics component. Is we've got environmental issues impacting our body, and the things that we're surrounded by, pollutants or shedding from different things, and glutathione is not super available. And so that in itself, because we can't break that down and we can't detox from it with by the job of the liver using the glutathione, we're going to have a bunch more issues just from that alone. So a little quote from one of the articles that I researched and looked at, or found, says glutathione depletion has been consistently observed in patients with depression and anxiety disorders, reflecting increased oxidative stress in these conditions. So that's quote for quote right there. And I've seen a lot of research articles on this, and I will show all the references at the end. You guys can look it up if you want to do your own research on it. Another thing I was talking about earlier is that the enzyme activity reductions vary. Also, the expressivity of how severe or not the mutation is in someone depends on if you are homozygous or a heterozygous genotype for this mutation. So homozygous meaning that you have both a mutated MTHFR gene copy within your chromosome copy from mom, and you have a mutated gene of the MTHFR from dad. So you have both of those genes are mutated. So you have homozygous is more extreme. It is 30% normal activity only of the enzyme activity. So your enzymes are really struggling a lot, and these people are probably going to notice a lot of issues from very young. Maybe they have ADHD symptoms. They have a lot of separation anxiety or different things as a kid. They don't want to go, whatever. It varies. But these people are going to see a lot more severe symptoms. Heterozygous means it's intermediate. So it means that you only have one mutated copy from either your mom or dad, and the other copy is fine. That methylation gene, MTHFR, works. So these individuals are going to have about 65% normal enzyme activity. So, like I said, on that test, it would also show up which genotype you have. A little bit more data. We've kind of talked about some of this, but I'll touch a little bit more into that hyperhomocysteinemia. So the MTHFR gene has been proven to cause that prevention of the conversion from homocysteine to glutathione, which, like I said, increases the level of homocysteine. So now that is called hyperhomocysteinemia. So if you look here at this bottom quote, it says, or the second quote says, hyperhomocysteinemia MTHFR genotype were significantly related to depression. The bottom quote here says these results support the homocysteine theory of depression, and that it is regularly seen in patients with the MTHFR gene mutation. So that's right there, the work that was done to prove that that is just one of the ways that happens. Like I said, it's just all these cascade effects. There's multiple different ways due to the fact that this mutation is causing us to not have the active form of folate. So we can't do a lot of these processes, but it's coming from all angles. We've got high levels of homocysteine, so hypercystinemia. We've got low levels of glutathione. We can't get rid of oxidative stress. All these different areas, it just comes from every different angle. And this is only talking about the mental health symptoms. There's other symptoms as well. Um, Something that I thought was very interesting. I learned about some of this in a neurobiology class, so I was very interested in that. Love neurobio. But we've got those MAO complexes that recycle the neurotransmitters from the synaptic cleft. So it recycles them and back to the presynaptic neuron to be used again. But more importantly, it's not having those neurotransmitters stay there and continue to be active and bind to receptors. So when we have something with mutation with this, this form, the MAOAR297R, is a form that has an intolerance of the methylfolate, which if you have something going on and you have some flight or flight, we're into the sympathetic nervous system right now, and you've got adrenaline and epinephrine going on, we're not being able to break those down and recycle them through the MAO and back. They're actually staying there and continuing to be active for a while. And so we've got feelings of anxiety, overstimulation. Overstimulation is a huge thing with ADHD. So it has been proven and correlated to ADHD, and one of the reasons that causes ADHD symptoms. So I thought that was interesting. It makes a lot of sense. And also, ADHD has been shown to be correlated and coincide with, at the same time as ADHD, as anxiety and depression. So, like I said, we've just got all these things bouncing off of each other. This does that to this, etc. Like I said, the most common forms are the C677T. The most extreme form is that one. A1298C, and then like I won't get a ton into this, but just know, and you could do more research on this, that B vitamins are disrupted. That can be very detrimental and just kind of debilitating for people. So conclusion, we've just kind of got those reduced homeostasis levels of the enzymes, homocysteine levels, neurotransmitter balance. So we've got more flight or fight, sympathetic neurotransmitters going on that we need. So we have these constant anxiety or overstimulation or different things like that. And yeah, identifying these types of variants and through genetic testing, which is like through a cheek swab or different things, and sending it to a lab and getting those results back instead of just giving someone an SSRI for anxiety or something first. First identifying what your genetic test says can really help understand the process of that biochemical process and pathways to better help treat that individual. So future directions and why it's significant. So in the future, I think that conducting genetic testing could be really, really important and can help possibly reduce the rising rates that we've seen of mental health issues and people saying they feel anxiety, depression, loneliness, different things like that. And there are people that doctors that implement this. One off the top of my head is Dr. Dan Purser. If you go to his website, and go to testing, he has a package with a console and also runs that test for you with other tests like COMT, pathway, all that stuff. So I know he does it. He's a doctor. I know other people that do it. So there are some people that do it. I've had it done. I actually, choosing to say this, but I do have the MTHFR gene mutation. So I've had to deal with that and had to work on that and get help with that from in a protocol and things, and kind of had to educate myself in school, but also just like for my own health and my own body. So there are some doctors who do it, but my thing is I think it needs to become in mainstream medicine and modern medicine. When someone comes to a doctor or psychiatrist and comes with these symptoms, they should say, okay, first thing, I'm hearing you're saying this, let's run some genetic testing, see if you have things, see if you have stuff going on. And that could be with the MTHFR or the COMT. There's other things that we could test for as well that could explain these things. But I think we don't want to just go straight to prescription drugs because, one, we all know that they have side effects. Even MDs and Western medicine, things like we all know that they have side effects. We don't want to just do that and just treat the topical thing. We don't want to just do topical mindset. We want to have deep rooted. We don't want to just be like, okay, these are your symptoms. Let's just put a band-aid on it. We want to get to the root cause. We want to actually heal the wound. We don't want to just put a band-aid on it. So things that we can prescribe, supplements and the exogenous forms of those natural acting antioxidants, enzymes, and vitamins. Biggest thing, obviously, is taking folate. Now, be careful when you do that. If you don't go to a doctor and you just want to get some folate, don't make sure it says 5-MTHF, which is the active form, because if you don't get the active form, it's not going to do its job. So like I've said earlier, the 5-MTHF is critical for producing those other things like the homocysteine conversion to the glutathione and all these different things. So that is a big thing, but we also could use riboflavin, obviously implementing the lacking vitamins, so anywhere from vitamin B5 to B12, also vitamin C, alpha lipoic acid, tyrosine, L-serine, magnesium. And so we want to create this, and if we need to tweak it, different things. But if severe symptoms still show and someone is still really struggling with their mental health and they're like, I'm having suicidal thoughts or different things like that, we obviously don't want to deprive a patient of getting the help that they need. So my personal opinion, other doctors or students or whatever have different opinions on this, but I think that prescriptions should be administered if they can't get the help that they need. This is a great protocol. This is a basic protocol idea of it, but it is targeting the genetics of it. It's targeting the root cause. So this is the best route to go when you go to the root cause and you actually look at, okay, what's going on with your genetics. But if someone's still struggling, I don't think that we should be like, you should never have prescription drugs. Obviously, like, talk to your doctor about it. But my personal opinion is that I don't think that just because whatever reason a doctor has, I don't think the patient should be don't have the option of prescription drugs to help with their mental health, because that's most important. But the main idea is to give them answers. Give them answers. Why do I feel the way I feel? Why am I feeling this way? Okay, yeah, you're giving me a prescription or even supplements or different things, but why? Why do I feel the way I feel? Maybe there's an answer behind it. Maybe there's a genetic thing behind it. Also, for their future kids, they can educate themselves to help them know. And a lot of people, some people, there's the moral aspect. Some people don't want to know their genetic testing. If they have Huntington's disease, stuff like that, people might not want to know. And so that's fine. Just run the test for the MTHFR or the things that are actually causing them issues that they can get answers for. And so we just really want to look at genetics first, dig deeper, and get to the root cause of why they feel the way they feel. So, yeah, and I think one more thing I'll say is that root cause has, I think, been associated with a lot of just holistic, naturopathic medicine. And a lot of MDs or other people look kind of down at that when they hear that. But I don't think it should be one side or the other. I think that coming from a scientific point of view, let's look at the science. Let's look at genetics. I'm going to university right now. It's not a naturopathic school or anything, but I'm like, okay, I'm going to use this. Like, I'm going to use what I'm learning in genetics or different things, and let's actually do what we're learning. Let's like go to the root cause instead of just looking at, okay, topical stuff like symptoms or whatever. And so I think that the term root cause doesn't have to be like demonized or whatever. Like, I think that it should just be any science, medical scientists and researchers' point of view is what I think. Anyways, here's some sources. I will link them below as well, but if you want to just screenshot that or anything, here's some of the sources that I used. And yeah, let me know if you guys have any questions in the comments.